Welcome to the Moffitt Method Podcast, where longtime strength and conditioning coach Tommy Moffitt explores everything from the art of coaching, improving performance, sports nutrition, and mental training. Now, welcome your host, Coach Tommy Moffitt.
Welcome to the Moffitt Method Podcast. If you're listening for the first time, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends. Before we get to today's guest, I'd like to take a moment to talk about the Moffitt Method training program and what we are all about. The Moffitt Method program is a culmination of my 34-year coaching career in high school and college. We put together a remote coaching solution for your organization, team, or athletic department. Our product includes a 52-week year-round lifting and running program with over 180 instructional videos. Please contact us via our website, themoffittmethod.fit, or email us at info@themoffittmethod.fit for more information. Our outstanding guest today is Coach Jake Riedel, Assistant Strength Coach for Army. Coach Riedel is a graduate of South Milwaukee High School, where he wrestled, played football, and was a national champion powerlifter. Coach Riedel went on to play football at Wisconsin-Whitewater, where he earned his undergraduate and master's degree in health, human performance, and recreation. Coach Riedel comes to Army after spending 7 seasons with Louisiana State University, holding the title of Senior Associate Director of Strength and Conditioning in 2021. While at LSU, Coach Riedel assisted in many aspects of the LSU football and strength and conditioning program. While holding the assistant role for the Tigers football team, Coach Riedel also trained the swim, dive, and track and field teams. Welcome to the podcast, Coach Jake. How are you and the family doing this morning?
We're good, Coach. We're good. Lily's, she's in kindergarten. Luke's running around like crazy, but every day's something different. But it's a lot of fun. They're doing good.
Good. Hey, how's the weather? How's the weather?
It's actually not bad. You know, last week it was in the 80s and 90s. This week it's like 60, 70, somewhere around there. Yeah. So it's good. Good deal. And we didn't get a ton of snow this year. We only had like 2 or 3 days where it kind of snowed a lot. So
good deal. We didn't get any snow this year.
Yeah, I missed
but
that.
It's raining, man. Yeah. It rained for 2 weeks straight. Then we had a few pretty days, and it's been raining all night. And it's supposed to rain all day today. So it's one of those inside days today.
Yeah.
All right, man. We'll get right to the questions here, man. I'm excited about having you on here. We have a lot to talk about. And just like some of the others, this is our second attempt at this. The first one was kind of jacked up. So, yeah. But I'm excited about this because I think we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. So,
yeah, I appreciate you having me, Coach.
Oh, you're more than welcome, man. More than welcome. And I think you're going to be able to give our listeners a lot of good practical information and knowledge that they can take back to their school or their team and implement. You know, that's the whole purpose of this. It's educational. It's to highlight, you know, people that I've met through it and worked with throughout my career. So I'm excited about having you on here.
Sure.
All right. So I know that strength and conditioning and powerlifting have all been a major part of your life for a long, long time. Can you tell us how you got started and the journey that you took to get where you're at today at West Point?
Yeah. It kind of goes back to, I was probably 7 or 8 or 9 years old, and my dad, he was really into bodybuilding and just lifting in general when he was younger, and so he would go in the basement and work out. He had a home gym, and for as long back as I can remember, I'd go down there with him, and he would only let me do like body weight exercises like pull-ups and push-ups and stuff. But I'd go down there every time he went down there, and he would help me get on the pull-up bar and crank out some pull-ups, knock out some push-ups. And, I never really like took it seriously until probably my junior year of high school. I was always good at it, but I just kind of did it because I knew I had to. Even my freshman and sophomore year, like I would go in the weight room and I didn't really take it seriously. And one of my coaches, who was also our powerlifting coach, he goes, "Hey, you're pretty strong. Like you probably be pretty good at this." And at the time, I played football, baseball, ran track, and wrestled. And so I was like, I didn't really know powerlifting was a sport. Like I said, I just lifted for all my other sports. And then I started competing my junior year, and I placed in state. I think I took third that year, and
Wow.
in the state powerlifting meet. And then my senior year, I won nationals and won state and won nationals and qualified for the world's meet. And it didn't take me till my junior year to really like take the weight room seriously, but obviously I'm glad I did. And then kind of getting into strength and conditioning. My grandpa started a business in his basement, and my dad bought it from him, and I was just going to do that. And then I started getting recruited to play college football. And my dad would always say, every letter I got, he'd be like, "Man, you're not going to go to college and waste 4 years and then come back and work for me. Like, if you're going to work for me, you're going to start out of high school." And he's like, and it's fine if you go to college, but you're going to get a degree that's worthwhile, and you're going to make a career out of it. And I was like, all right. And so I decided to go to college, obviously, and I didn't really know strength and conditioning was a profession until I got there and I had a strength coach. And so I followed the health and human performance track with a minor in coaching at Wisconsin-Whitewater, and knew right then and there that I could live my life in the weight room and help athletes become better. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to personal train. My dad was always like, "You should be a PE teacher. You should be," and I'm like, "I don't want to do that." And, I graduated. I actually got my master's within a year or two after I graduated with my undergrad. And then I couldn't find a job for almost 2 years. And I almost, I ended up moving back with my mom and dad and working for my dad, doing exactly what he told me I shouldn't do after going to college. And I got a call from Valdosta State as a Division II school in Georgia, and they offered me a GA position. I immediately accepted it because it had been almost 2 years and I didn't have a job. And then not a week later, the University of Cincinnati called me, and he's like, "Hey, we got a GA spot open. We're about to have two. If the second one comes open, do you want it?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And God, my dad didn't talk to me for like weeks because I accepted that Cincinnati job, and he's a super loyal guy. Like if he gives you his word, he means it. And so I had to back out of the Valdosta State job, and he was so mad at me. But so anyways, I went to the University of Cincinnati as a GA for my first year, got hired full time my second year, and then I met you at the third floor of Tootsie's in Nashville, and that was, I guess, kind of my interview, and you had a spot open at the time, and so we just kind of met and got to talking, and
how about
and then Meg and I got married and moved to Baton Rouge in 2015, and then the rest is kind of history after that. So
interviewed you over drinks in Tootsie's Lounge.
So I never will forget.
You never know. You always got to be prepared, man.
No doubt. And for me, I feel like that was where I was not most comfortable in a bar, but in like just a relaxed setting where you can kind of be yourself and you can really get to know somebody. I feel like that was a blessing in disguise for me. And obviously it all worked out. So
that's awesome. So now, did you go to the world meet in high school? Did you?
I didn't. It was in France, which would have been really cool. And I actually, one of my biggest regrets is not going. But it was. It would have been in. That would have been my freshman year of college football, and I really wanted to go through camp with the team and be with the team, and I think that meet would have been in October or November, and so I would have, I would have missed all that time with the team, and so I decided to not go. And I think based on what I totaled at nationals and what the totals were at the Worlds meet, I think I would have taken second or third. I don't think I would have won the meet, but I would have done well. And I kind of wish I would have went, but I didn't.
Yeah. It was a raw meet, or you were geared?
Geared, yeah. It was single ply. You could only wear a single ply squat suit, knee wraps, and then a single ply bench shirt. But at the state meet in the state of Wisconsin, you couldn't use a bench shirt. So I had to get used to that after the state meet because you could use it at nationals. So I don't know. Geared powerlifting is different.
Yeah, what was your total?
I don't remember off the top of my head exactly what it was. It was over 1,500. It was somewhere between 1,500 and 1,600.
Yeah.
Squat, bench, deadlift.
Yeah. So Brady had a buddy that did really well here for Catholic High, and he was working out here, because the state powerlifting championship was probably a month ago. And so he hadn't touched a barbell since then. He's a senior. He's graduating, going to go to LSU. So he came over here like last week sometimes, I don't know, to work out. And he was struggling. The last time he competed, he had, he was all geared up and he was working out in the dungeon here. And he struggled a little bit. I could hear him over there grunting and groaning and complaining about how weak he had gotten, but it was because he wasn't geared up.
No doubt.
But that's cool.
If you use that gear right, you put probably two for sure. Just by putting it on, you'll probably put 100 pounds on your lift. If you know how to use it, you can put 300 pounds on your lift, which is crazy.
Yeah. All right, so let me ask you this, and then we'll move on. So did your dad build any of the equipment that y'all had in the basement?
No. He just had like old York barbells and York plates, and
y'all still have free those?
Weights. No, he had free weights for a long time, and then as he started to get older, he had like a machine that had a bench, and then it had a pec deck, and it had the leg extension at the end of the bench, and it had I don't know what it had 3 things on it. It was like a little triangle machine, and then he sold that and got a boat. Like as he got older, he just trained what was comfortable. So he got a Bowflex, and then he got rid of that. So
y'all's basement was heated?
No. Well, after a while, so. No, when he first started, no, and then he made a rec room out of it and stuff like that, and it had heat down there. But when he first started, no, it was cold.
So in Middle Tennessee, we didn't have heat in our basement, and it was cold down there, man, in the wintertime.
Oh, cinder blocks and stuff.
Oh yeah, it was cold. Yeah, it was just concrete block. Ours was unfinished. It was just a concrete block basement, concrete floor, and weights.
Yep.
And my dad was in a similar, field as your dad. Now my dad built all of our equipment, but now we had York plates and York bars, and I still got a lot of that. But all the stuff my dad built, it was cool.
He hung a lat pull down bar. That was our pull up bar, and he hung it in the rafters so your head would go up through the rafters, But it was cool. It was cool.
Yeah. So last spring you sent me a video of some of the players going through military training or maneuvers. Okay.
Yep.
And I thought that was super cool. Can you talk about that and how what the meaning behind it and the reasoning behind it and all that they do?
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it is cool, and I'm really glad I went out there. So right down the road, and I actually drive past it every day to go home, is Camp Buckner, and that's where. So let me start with the freshmen. So the freshmen come here and they do 6 weeks of beast. Like we don't even see them. They get here in June, and we don't see them till they start camp in August. We don't train them at all.
Oh,
They're doing
wow.
straight military training.
Is it like
And then
boot camp?
yeah, yep.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
And
that.
so yeah, and they'll lose a bunch of weight. Like it's crazy. And the freshmen, and let me make sure I get this right, so anybody that hears this doesn't get mad at me. The freshmen gonna be sophomores. They go to Buckner, which is right down the road, and this year it's a little shorter. I forget the exact amount of days, but it's usually about 2 weeks that they're out in the field. They sleep in the field. They do land nav. They do field artillery. They do all kinds of military training.
They fire howitzers.
Oh yeah, that's the video I sent you.
Yeah.
That's the group that I went to see last May. And then the sophomores going to be juniors go to military training, and then the juniors going to be seniors. They go to military training too. I think the juniors that are going to be seniors also go to Buckner, but they do a different thing than the freshmen going to be sophomores. And the sophomores going to be juniors. They go, like last year, they went to Fort Campbell, which was in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's right where I live or grew up.
Yeah, and this year they're going to Fort Drum, and we'll actually send a strength coach or two out with that group that goes out, and they'll be able to train that group while they're doing their military training. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, man, every May they go out in the field in some capacity, and I don't know where we're at with questions and stuff, but when we get them for the first week back for summer training, like last year we did a total of how much weight our team lost. And this actually is going to sound bad, but it's not bad compared to what it was. We were down 850 pounds as a team.
As a team.
Yeah. And it used to be like in the thousands or 2000s. Like they would lose so much weight out in the field. But now, so the groups that are at Buckner, like one of us will bring them food at night whenever they come out of the field, and it won't be every night because some nights they'll have to sleep in the field and stuff like that. But every other night, or every third night, we'll bring them food, and there's a weight room out there that they go that they can train at, and then so they do a little bit of bench press and a little bit of arms, and we feed them because they can't do much more than that.
Yeah.
And that's why we send the strength coaches with the group that goes to whatever military base they're going to that year, because they can go to the Sam's Club and they can get them food and help them out too. So it's cool. It's really cool. It's cool to see them do stuff outside of football.
Yeah.
Especially watching them shoot howitzers
and they're live rounds.
Yeah. So funny story. When I went out there last year, I was talking to one of the guys that was running it, and he's like, yeah, because they pack bags of gunpowder based on how far they want to shoot it. So there's a string of gunpowder, and so there's all these calculations that go into it. Well, the year before that, they packed too much gunpowder in there, and they were bouncing them off the mountains, and they were landing in lakes where random people were fishing. And so the people fishing called, and they're like, your rounds are landing in our lake, like you're gonna hit us. And so I think they only pack one in there now, but it's super cool to see, super cool.
And how many acres is that? Do you know offhand how big of a campus or base that Army is?
And I don't know if this probably, I'm guessing, doesn't include all the ranges. I think there's like 12 different ranges. There might be more. But Coach Munkin says that when we recruit, there's 16,000 acres. And I don't know if that's just like the housing and the campus itself, or if that includes the ranges in Camp Buckner and all that stuff. But I would guess because I drive through that every day to go home, and I would guess it's more than that, but I don't know exactly how much that is.
So how long does it last?
The training?
Yeah.
Depends on which group is where. Like I said, this year's only 9 days for the longest
Oh,
group,
okay.
I think.
Yeah.
But last year was upwards of 17 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So really just depends on the schedule.
Yeah. So I know that those guys love football, or they wouldn't be there. But knowing that they are going to defend our freedom here in America, and they're going to, go overseas and possibly fight wars. Do you think they see football from a little different perspective, or are they the same as some of the other teams that you've been around?
Yeah, I think they're the same. They love ball, man. They do.
Yeah.
And heck, I think they might love football more than some of the players that we had at LSU. And they truly love the game of football. Otherwise, they would just do the military thing,
Right.
or they would do something else. And being a football player here plus a cadet, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time commitment to it, and so these guys truly love ball. And when they're up here at the building, it's all ball all the time, and they're dialed in on that. So I don't know. I don't know that we treat them any. They're still 18 to 22-year-old kids, and they're just some of the best 18 to 22-year-old kids that you're gonna find. And so
because the academics, I mean, it's West Point, so the academics are tough. The athletics is tough.
Yeah.
And so, you got to love it, or you're not going to do it. Now,
No,
how, of all the athletic teams that y'all have there, do you know how many athletes that y'all have in the entire school at West Point?
I don't know that. I don't know the exact number. I do know that every cadet here has to do some extracurricular. So if it's not athletics, they have to be involved in a club, or like some of the guys that don't make our team, we'll bring them on as interns, and it's called the strength team. And so the Olympic side has probably 15 of those kids that were cut or whatever from their team. But that's their extracurricular. And so they have to be involved with something outside of academics. So I don't know the exact number of NC2A athletes, but I do know every cadet here is involved in something extracurricular.
All right, last thing on this, and then we'll move on, because I thought this was cool. Can you talk about how their day is started every day, and how that goes? Because I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, so when I first got here, I'll talk about their day. So the cannon shoots every morning at 6:30 in the morning, and the flag goes up the pole, and everybody stops and salutes and stuff, and the trumpet's playing, like, what you think? And then and that's every morning at 6:30 is their wake up call, and they have formation. They have
loud cannon, not
loud cannon.
Loud cannon.
And that's the funny story I was going to tell. So we go check breakfast, right? So they all the cadets have to go to breakfast. So the first day I was like, all right, breakfast check. I'm just bebop into the mess hall, and the cannon shoots off, and I probably jumped 10 feet in the air. I'm like, what in the heck was that? And he's like, yeah, I forgot to tell you, the cannon goes off. It's like, all right, man. So anyway, so 6:30 the cannon goes off. They're in formation by 6:40 or 6:45, and they have from that time after formation, I would say probably 6:50 to 7:40, and all the cadets, you'll see the doors fly open, and they all come rushing into the mess hall at the same time. They all eat within that time.
How many cadets?
I think there's 42 or 4,300.
And they're all eating in the same building.
Yep. Same building.
All right.
Same time.
All right. Now tell them what it looked like. with the setup?
So there's wings. There's different wings of it, and the barracks are connected to it. But where the football team sits is right in the front. Like when you walk in the doors, that's their tables, and so you see them. You see all the cadets flying through the doors, and the freshmen, they have to stand until somebody comes over the loudspeaker and tells them to take their seats, and then they all sit. There's plates at the table. They all pass out the plates. It's like a family style meal. Like they'll drop off pans of waffles, eggs, whatever, and they help. You see them. They help serve each other. Hey, can you pass me a fork? Hey, can you pass me a napkin? Hey, can you pass me the water? Hey, whatever. And then when they all leave, their chairs are pushed in. The trash is piled up at the end of the table. The dirty plates are piled up at the end of the table, and they're gone. And then the cleaning crew just has to come clean that one spot. Like one of the most organized, like controlled chaos things I've ever seen.
4,200 people eating at the same time.
Yeah. Yep.
They must cook all night long.
Yeah, and like they're on it. Like they are on it because you only have like 40 minutes to eat. So they're like within the first 5 or 10 minutes, the trays or whatever food's at the table, and they can eat. Yeah. It's pretty neat. And then their first class starts at 7:40, and depending on if it's day 1 or day 2, they have 5 or 6 classes straight. Yeah. And you won't see a player at this building till probably 2:00 every day.
Yeah.
Maybe later than that.
Yeah. Now, do any of the Olympic sports come in sooner, or everybody's pretty much, so.
Yeah.
So y'all get inundated with athletes coming from everywhere, all sports.
Yeah, probably from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's like their window to do whatever their extracurricular is. And so they come up here, train, they meet, they practice, they do whatever they have to do that day. And then they got to go back down the hill. And it's not a hill, it's a mountain. They got to go back down the mountain and do their homework. Because it's like you mentioned earlier, it's high academic, academic. And so like you can't get behind in school. You can't. So.
Yeah. And there's no scooters buzzing around either. You're walking, right?
Yeah, they're walking. Now they do have like a bus shuttle service that runs, but like a lot of kids I see, it'll be faster for them to walk because the bus has to wait for it to get full, and then it comes up the hill. It's probably faster that they walk, but it's not a hill, it's a mountain.
Yeah. All right, good deal. All right, good. Let's get to some nitty gritty now, because I always think, that's the cool part about your job there, because they're expected to do well academically, they're expected to do well in athletics, and they're training to protect our freedoms.
And the other thing I failed to mention too is they have a uniform of the day. So whether it's fatigues or they're dressed grays or whatever, like they've got to be dressed in the uniform of the day for formation.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right. Now, do they do like you see on TV where they go in and check their bunks and stuff like that too?
Yeah. So sometimes, when I'm doing breakfast check, they'll have I guess they call it a health and wellness inspection. And they'll come in and it's not every day, it's not every time, but they'll come in and check their rooms and stuff like that. Yeah. Make sure their beds are made and all that.
Anybody scrubbing the latrine with a toothbrush? Do you hear any stories of that?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Or peeling potatoes.
No, but they'll like take out their floors trash and stuff like that. Like they have responsibilities in the barracks too, and responsibilities within their company, so they have responsibility outside of football too, which is cool.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So let's start talking some strength and conditioning. I know that Coach Hughes is the head strength coach there for football at Army. Great dude.
Yeah.
I know he's a great coach, great leader. Can you talk about the type of program that he runs and maybe a few things that you've picked up from him since joining the staff last year?
Yeah. So the main thing that I've picked up from Coach Hughes, and like you said, great dude, great leader. Um, Whatever he's going to ask of the players, he's going to do himself, which I admire, and he's going to hold himself and his staff to that standard before he even thinks about mentioning it to the team. And I think that is just so important, you know. And you know, when you talk about culture, like if you're not doing it, how can you expect somebody else to do it?
Yeah.
And that, you know, honestly, that, and I know this isn't technically the answer to your question, but it starts from the top. And
Yeah.
when I talk about the top, I talk about Coach Monken. And
Yeah.
Coach, when I'm telling you it's the fourth quarter and we're playing Navy and he's on the field picking up garbage, he's on the field picking up garbage. Like, if he sees a piece of trash on the ground, he will go out of his way to pick it up. It doesn't matter what we're doing, doesn't matter where we're at. If something's out of place, it will get fixed.
That's
And
Coach Monken.
yeah, yes.
Wow. And
And
that's so for the listeners, that's Todd Monken's big brother, correct?
cousin.
Oh, they're cousins, not
They're
brothers. So
cousins.
Todd
Yeah.
Monken was the OC at Georgia. He left.
Yeah. I think he's with
Um,
the Ravens now.
yeah.
I
But
think
that
he's in the NFL.
is, yeah. So that's a culture that starts from the top with the head
Yeah.
football coach.
Yeah, and so Coach Hughes has actually mentioned it a couple of times. Is the reason why he doesn't want to leave here is Coach Monken keeps him on his toes. He'll never get too comfortable because every once in a while he'll come down to the weight room and see there's a battle rope out of place or just something minuscule.
Yeah.
And he can never get too comfortable, and it's always going to be a challenge for him. And so it
Makes
starts
him a
from the
better
top.
coach in person. Yeah.
No doubt. No doubt. So, but yeah, one of the biggest things that I've learned just from not only Coach Hughes but from Coach Monken is leadership and culture. And when I'm telling you, like Coach Monken knows everybody in the program's name, hometown and high school. He knows everybody's hometown, name, and high school, and he expects our players to know that too, and he expects the staff to know that too. So we're going to have probably 200 kids on our team, and we're going to have to know their name, hometown, and high school, and know a little bit about them. And and when you talk about a team and just, a brotherhood, if you don't know somebody's name, how can you call them a brother? And
Right.
so just that kind of stuff, just stuff outside of coaching and outside of strength and conditioning, that's important to people. When I took this job, Coach Monken called me. He called me 2 minutes later. He said, Coach Riedel, I can't wait to get you up here. I'm so fired up to have you up here. And just little stuff like that, that that matters to people, you know.
That goes beyond X's and O's, man.
Yeah. And there's a reason why he's as successful of a coach as he is. Because he holds, it doesn't matter if it's recruiting, it doesn't matter if it's strength and conditioning, training staff, it doesn't matter, equipment, like it's important to him, and it better be important to you. And if it's not, you won't be here.
Yeah.
So
awesome. All right. What about what are some of Coach Hughes' pillars for strength and conditioning? Like, what are the important things on the daily that y'all are going to get done?
Yeah, we're gonna do the basics savagely well. Like, and I say that, but that's word for word what he will say. And we do. When we get our freshmen here, we will teach them for a week or however long it takes how we want them to brace how we want them to unrack that empty bar with a squat, how they're gonna brace and how they're gonna squat. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. it doesn't matter whatever. And we'll do the same thing on bench, and he's allowed me to do the same thing on cleans. And we take our time and we teach the basics extremely, extremely, extremely well. And with the squat, we'll start with body weight squat. Just body weight squat in a regular warm up. Well, let me backtrack. We'll do the warm up until we can't mess it up.
Right.
Because the warm up matters. It sets
Yeah.
the tone for the entire workout. So beyond
Amen.
getting your core temperature up, beyond all that stuff it provides you physically, it's just as much mental for anybody as it is physical. And so if we can't do that right, how can we expect them to squat, bench, power clean? We can't. And so now it's easier to say that at a place like Army. We're a true developmental program, and so you don't have to worry about true freshmen playing that much. Like, we have time to develop them, but it doesn't matter what level of football you're at. If it's important enough for you to do it, then it's important enough for you to coach it, my opinion. And that's Coach Hughes' opinion too. So we'll start with the warm up until we can't mess it up. And then from there, we'll start with squat progression and bench progression, and we'll start with body weight squats. And he'll have everybody body weight squat, and then he'll bring them up and say, "All right, I just watched you all squat to depth, every single one of you. Doesn't matter your limitations. If you're stiff in the ankle, if you can do a body weight squat to depth, if you put weight on that bar or whatever, you hit that depth every time." And that's how he creates buy-in for squat depth. And if you watch our guys, on social media, they hit depth. Doesn't matter. And so that's it, man. He starts with brace, how he wants them to unrack the bar, and squatting to depth, and we hammer that. Hammer it.
Any big auxiliaries and stuff for the squat and bench that he's a believer in? Because I know y'all put up. I mean, if anybody's ever looked at the weight that these guys put up, their relative strength is extremely high, and they can generate some force. So we
got some strong dudes. The basics, coach, man, it's not much different than what we did at LSU, and we squat, we do single leg work, we do RDLs, we do glute hams, I've just started implementing with the skill and combo sumo deadlifts, but no, we don't do anything fancy. What we do well is we hold them accountable and we hold them to a standard. And if they're not hitting that standard, we do it over. And I think that's something that anybody at any level can take with them, and should take with them.
I say all the time, because the warm up. In fact, I guess it was in Blake's podcast that aired this week, that if you tell a young man to put his feet behind the line and he puts his feet on the line 5 times in a row, you got to break down in communication. And that is something that you got to get fixed before you move on to the next thing. Or you have penalties. But for your players, if somebody keeps making those types of mistakes, someone could lose their life.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
So it goes beyond football.
No doubt. And you always said this, and we say it here, little things turn into big things. Well, there's no bigger thing than your life or somebody you're in charge of's life.
Right.
And so, those guys that are going to go infantry and they're going to be in the heat of things, and they're going to have to lead people, like, those things matter, and they matter to the utmost importance, and that comes down to life. And the other thing too, and I talked about Coach Monkton a little bit before, but like, if you do the warm up wrong in practice, he will reload you. And so when it starts from the top down, it starts from the top down. And so actually, this is a great time for us to do this podcast, because for the last 2 weeks, we have a separate weight room warm up and pre-practice warm up, like I'm sure everybody does. Well, we kept screwing up the pre-practice warm-up. So in the weight room, we did the pre-practice warm-up, and if we didn't get to the lift, we didn't lift. But we were going to do the pre-practice warm-up right.
Yeah.
And so,
get it right. Figure
get
it
it
out.
right. Or if they're not getting it right, and I think you've mentioned this before, peel it back to the basics and figure out why they're not getting it right. And that's true with the warm-up. That's true with Olympic weightlifting. That's true with anything that you do. So,
yeah. Don't be afraid to strip the weights off. Go back to basic fundamentals and get it done right.
Yeah. So culture and leadership is extremely important here, and it should be extremely important everywhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Can you describe your responsibilities there and what a typical week during the off season for you, the team, and the rest of the staff looks like?
Yeah. So, I guess it was January. I got promoted to pretty much his first assistant, which is what I was for you at LSU. And so when I got that job, he said, so let me peel it back a little bit. When I first got here, my role was GPS. And he knew I had worked for you, and I was good with Olympic weightlifting. So we on Saturdays we do open hours, and we do schools, like 30-minute schools, 30-minute speed school, 30-minute Olympic school, 30-minute FRC school, which is cool because it gives them something to do when they come in here. And so he's like, I want you to be in charge of Olympic school. And I was like, all right, no problem. And so I watched the guys train for a couple weeks, and I knew some things that we could do better, and I attacked those in Olympic school. And then after he saw those guys improve, he's like, all right, I want you to write the next 8 weeks of our Olympic progression for the whole team. And I was like, all right, no problem. And so I did that, and we got better. And he's like, all right, I want you to write the entire Olympic program for the entire summer, and we're going to do it. I was like, all right, cool. And so we did that, and we got better. And then, whenever I got promoted in January, the first thing he said to me is, I want you to write the skill and combo program, skill and mid-skill program, and I want you to run it like you're the head strength coach. And so we have 2 separate whiteboards. We have 2 separate programs going on, and I have the ability to do and run whatever I want, which has been incredible for me in my development, and so that's my responsibility now. And I still do the GPS, staff development, stuff like that. But my biggest responsibility is I legitimately write and train the skill and combo group, and there's 85 of those guys on a day-to-day basis, so it's almost like I have a full 105 team, which has been great for me, and it's been a lot of fun.
How many racks? Wait, how many racks do y'all have?
28.
Yeah, and that's for
now we train
into. Is that for everyone or just football?
It depends. Some, like on Fridays, we'll have the whole team in here, and we'll have all 28. But we train in 2 groups. So we take one side that has 15, and we'll have like 4 or 5 guys at a rack, and then we'll train in 2 groups. So it's like 80 guys per group.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So,
and that's because you have your cadet team and you have the varsity team.
Yeah, I mean they all train together. We do have like JV games and stuff in season, but the academies can roster way more players. Army, Navy, Air Force can roster way more players than a normal team. And I guess it's because it's hard to get them in, or you got guys that aren't going to make it academically. I don't know the exact reason as to why. But like this year, we'll have 91 freshmen coming in.
Yeah.
So
no portal guys, right? Y'all don't get transfers. Like
no,
you
not
can't
really.
transfer in the Army.
No, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you probably could, but you have to qualify academically. So
Yeah.
that that's a big thing. But yeah, so I train the skill and mid skill or skill and combo. I'm still in charge of teaching progressions for Olympic weightlifting and things like that. But Coach Hughes does all the programming for the O&D line. So
Yeah.
whatever they do, and GPS and those are my
So
responsibilities.
how, we were talking earlier about your clean progression. Can you go through the different progressions that you use for teaching those 3 lifts?
Yeah, so I actually did a couple of presentations this year on it, and I've told you this before. I totally revamped your clean progression, but it's
So
worked
you didn't
well
like
for us.
it?
So the first thing we do is what I call tall squat cleans, and you've probably seen it. You've probably seen the Chinese weightlifting team do it, but I cue it. And so I first teach them the set position I want, and we start with the barbell. Start with the empty barbell, just like we did at LSU. I teach them. I know a lot of people don't teach the wrist curl anymore. I do because of arm length. If we're not training weightlifters, we're training football players. And if you can curl your wrist, you can get that bar higher in your hip, and the higher in your hip you're going to get it, the more power you're going to produce. So we still teach the wrist curl. I teach them proper grip on the barbell, wrist curl, and where I want that bar to sit in the set position, and that's at the top third of the thigh, and that's the same for you. So I'll say set, and they immediately know that that's their set position. And then I'll say tall, and they'll get up through the ball of their foot, they'll extend their hip, they'll shrug, and they'll sit that bar in their hip. And I'll make them hold it and just get comfortable. Because if you're too high on your toes or not high enough on your toes, you're going to lose your balance. And so you know right then and there that you're not in the proper position. So I'll make them hold that. And when they're all in the proper position, I'll say go. And from that position, they can't pull it anymore. You can't pull it with your arms. You got to get under the bar quick. And so that immediately teaches them how to get under the bar.
Do they
and then I'll
pause
say
in that bottom position?
it's not a full squat. I teach them the power position first.
Okay.
And then I'll say up, and then I'll say squat, and they go into a full front squat. So it's almost like a 5-part exercise. So it's set, tall, go, up, squat. And we did that for probably 3 weeks with our freshmen. And then and they looked good. They looked really good. We got some guys. We started with the bar. We had some guys doing that with 135 by the end of it, which is pretty tough to do. And then the next part, I go into tall squat clean. So I'll have them, and this is kind of on them unless they struggle with it. I will cue it again, but my goal is to not to. But they'll get up in that same tall position and hold it on their own for 2 seconds. Then they come back down to the set position, and then it's just a hang squat clean from there. But it just reinforces, for another 3 weeks, how to finish that pull. Exactly. And so we did that for probably 2 or 3 weeks. And then it's regular. We went second position clean after that. I skipped hang clean. I had hang clean in there, but we were doing so much of it.
You were doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went straight to second position squat clean, which I love. I think might be my favorite variation of the clean because of the velocity you can put on the bar, and how self-corrective it is. And you taught me this, like you can hear them hit their knee. If they're not passing their knee well, you can hear it with the barbell. And so just teaching them how to pass their knee and teaching them that second pull of getting it back on their thigh. And then from there, it should be muscle memory at that point, getting back to the tall position and getting under the bar. And we've had great success with that. And then we go to power clean, because all you got to do is after second position, you got to pull that bar maybe 4 more inches and you're in second position. So it's pretty simple. And that's kind of our progression now. And we've had a lot of success. we had a couple freshmen this year clean 350.
Yeah.
So we've had some success with it. So
how's the Catholic High guys look?
they look good. They look really good. They're great weightlifters, man. They're so good. But yeah.
How many's on the team now? How many's on the team?
There's 2 at prep, and right now there's 2 on the team, so 4 total.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we got an O lineman and then a safety, Michael Trinauskas, who went to Catholic High.
Yeah, he knows it. He knows how to play it. He rolls, man. I loved watching him play.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
Hunter Finucane's doing good, huh?
Yeah.
Shout out. Catholic High, Hunter Finucane.
Yeah. Connor's doing really good, man. Really, really good.
I mean, Connor, not Hunter.
Yeah. He's a great leader. He's tough. He's competitive, and he'll be the first to gnaw somebody out if they're not doing it right. But he holds himself to that standard too, which is what you want to see in your leaders. And again, in my opinion, that starts from Coach Monk and then Coach Hughes. And so, and really the rest of the coaches too, because they're all held to that standard too. So, and that's where I think, and Connor's, you kind of got to be a different breed to be really successul here in the first place, just from all the other stuff you have to do physically and mentally. But yeah, man, he'll go on, like, he'll come in on Monday and be like, yeah, I went on a 30-mile ruck this weekend. Like, and I slept in the woods just on his own, just on his own. But they're phenomenal. So, they're great. They're great lifters.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Can you talk about your role with the GPS tracking?
Yeah.
And what you're looking at, and how does it influence programming?
Yeah. So, and I failed to mention this in my previous responsibilities, but I actually took the GPS from not last year's camp, the year before, and I looked at it and I changed some of the metrics to what I wanted them to be. When you're talking about high intensity accelerations and decelerations, I think I made them anything greater than 2.3 meters per second or negative 2.3 meters per second, which if you see that on a barbell or on perch, like, that's rolling. And, and so we look at high intensity accels and decels, and I actually wrote our last summer's change of direction program based on accels and decels, not based on sets and reps. And so when you look at our average practice as a team, and this wasn't position by position because every position is a little bit different, we were getting in a 2.5 hour session, and some got more, some got less, but we were averaging about 100 high intensity accels and decels. And in a 45-minute session last summer, our hardest session, we finished at 92. And so when you multiply that by 2.5 times, you're talking over 200 accels and decels, but they can handle 92. And so that's where, and I hate to get all scientific on you, but that's where density of your session comes into play. You're never going to match the duration that you're out on the field.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Yeah, you can match the density of it. And that's what we did. And within the first 2 weeks of camps, I can't remember anybody really going down with a serious injury. And so we were ready for camp, which, that was really, really good. And you're never going to match, like, when you're looking at metrics. I printed off some reports here, like our skill guys our corners on an average practice, and I have 4 days and then an average, they're averaging 5,300 yards. Can't match that.
Yeah.
You're never going to match that because they're going to do that every single day for 2 or 3 weeks of camp. But what you can match is when you look at their player load per minute, it's 4. And when you looked at our player load per minute in the summer, we had 9s or 10s. And so, if you're out there for a shorter amount of time, it's got to be a little bit harder. And then, when you look at whether you have player load per minute or distance per minute, whatever metric per minute you have, that's your density metric. And so we base a lot of people want to look at player load and total distance, and we look at high speed distance. I have high speed distance as anything greater than 80%. Now, I know the text is going to talk about and they're talking about track athletes, 95 to 100%. But when I looked at our games, our average velocity was I think our lowest one was 81, and our highest one was 85. And so that's where I came up with. And I talked to some other people. Some other people they look at anything greater than 75% as high speed distance. But then I look at it practically, and I'm like, well, sometimes when we're running tempos, we ask our guys to run 75%. That's not high speed distance. And so that's where I kind of came up with 80%, because 80% will have an effect on the hamstring. But I have different velocity bands. And so my high speed distance band is band 4 and 5 added together. So band 4 is 80 to 90, and band 5 is 90, pretty much 90 plus.
So, and y'all are using Catapult, correct?
Yeah. And so really our money makers, especially for summer training, is any density metric. Either for us, it's player load per minute. I know some systems have distance per minute. It's high speed distance on our velocity days. We're gonna look to get, because it is 80% or greater, so you can do a little bit more yardage. We're gonna look to get about 350 of high speed distance.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's Charlie Francis talks about 150 yards of true max effort sprint work, and so we're a little greater than that because we're gonna have some stuff under that. And then high intensity XLs and decels is our change of direction day. And so those are our three money makers in the summer. In season, we look at player load, which is your workload, player load per minute, total distance, high speed distance, max velo, and high intensity XLs and decels. So a couple more metrics, but not much.
Yeah. All right. So let me ask
you. Did I ramble there, or did I answer your question, or did I ramble?
You actually covered a lot, and so I'm glad, because the more you cover, the less questions I have to ask.
No doubt.
So I told you I was up late last night. So this weekend is a big LSU football alumni weekend. So I got invited out last night to dinner with some of our former players, and I got home early. Well, I got home early this morning. Okay.
As you should have.
Yeah, I had just a few hours of sleep. Yeah. And then the alarm went off, and I had to cook breakfast for B-Town.
Yeah.
And then I had to take my truck to the shop, I got to get my truck serviced. So I've been rolling and going. So the more you do, the less I do. So that's cool with me.
Good.
So let me ask you this, all right? And this is something that I know you experienced. We experienced it, and no two athletes are the same. I don't care what sport you play in, man. No two athletes are the same. And in college football, no two position groups are the same. In fact, and it depends on how granular you want to get with it, but the right tackle's demands are different than the left tackle's demands. Okay.
Yeah.
Strong corner or field corner is going to be different than a boundary corner or weak side corner or nickel or safeties. It's all going to be different. Okay. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, when Clyde was in the game, he was asked to do things that the other running backs were not asked to do. So do you see player, and I heard this the other day. So, do you see particular player load signatures between different players that play the same position? Okay. Yeah. And, or do you see player load signatures that are different for players that play different positions, like your outside linebacker versus your tackle, or your tackle versus your nose? So can you speak on that? Because this to me has really been interesting, and we know it exists, but it's great to hear it from someone else.
Yeah. So
wait, why are you smiling?
Because it's a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole, and I'm gonna try and explain it as best I can without exploding people's heads. But it goes beyond player load. It really does. And player load is whatever GPS system's algorithm of workload. And so what's going to go into it is a bunch of different metrics. And so I kind of try and look beyond player load and see what metrics and what those athletes are doing differently to get that higher player load or lower player load. And the biggest thing I see, and you talked about Clyde, and we've got a bunch of dudes here that, like, when they stick their foot in the ground and they can get in and out of breaks quicker, their player load is higher. And when you look at their high intensity accelerations and decelerations, they're significantly greater. And then in my head, I'm like, all right, well, that makes sense, because when you look at the yardage, and if I look at our two starters, one's got 5,600 yards and one's got 5,800 yards. Okay. And one's got a player load of 759 and one's got a player load of 522. Yeah. Well, how does that happen if they're running the same yardage? You kind of have to look beyond player load, in my opinion. Now, when I look at of those two players, when I look at their high intensity accels and decels, one's got 96 and one's got 66. Yeah. That's significant. And I don't know exactly what goes into Catapult's metric, but that's significant. And so when you talk about, you mentioned outside linebackers and O-line. Outside linebackers and D-line are some of the most interesting ones to me because their yardage is pretty high. It's not as high as a skill player, but we got our outside linebackers, and I'm glad I printed these reports off so I can reference them. We got guys that are averaging, I guess it is, 56 and 5,700 yards. And so,
oh, wow.
Yeah, they're going.
Coach O's coaching y'all's D-line?
No. But those guys also have 186 and 151 high intensity XLs and decels. And when you think about the position that they play, it's get off. And so no matter what they do, they're getting off the ball, whether it's indie, whether it's team, whatever it is, like they're getting off the ball. So it's, I would imagine, and I could break it up by XL, decel and see what they're doing more, but I would imagine probably 2/3, if not more, of those are accelerations. And so, it seems like a really high number, but there's not a ton of decelerations in there. But then when you look at a training standpoint, you're like, well, those guys need to decelerate if they're going to accelerate that much. You know what I mean? To kind of balance it out. And when you look at the O-line, they got 39, 68, 70, because every time unless it's a run play, they snap the ball and it's a pass, it's backwards. It's not going to be a high intensity acceleration or deceleration. And so, yes, there's definite differences by position, and we do train them differently, but it goes beyond player load. It goes well beyond player load, in my opinion. So I don't know if that.
Yeah. All right. So what about the coaches' sessions? How Does it differ there than what we did at LSU? But your coaches sessions, OTAs, player-led practices, and stuff like that. Is there a correlation? Is there not correlation? Is there collaboration between the football coaches, strength and conditioning staffs, and you don't have a sports science department? You're the sports science department.
Pretty much, me.
But is there collaboration between the different staffs?
Yeah, and they listen. They listen to us, which is really, really cool. We only go out there for an hour in the summertime. We only do one session for an hour, and it's on Friday. And so when you look at all the previous metrics, and I didn't print it. We didn't start till July last year of doing the football, whatever it is. It's not player led. It's skills and drills or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. We started in July, and that was when I really started to crank up our acceleration and deceleration to get them ready for camp. And so the first week of July, we went out there and we had, I think on our Thursday change of direction day, we had 81 as a team, 81 high intensity accelerations, decelerations. And then they went out there on Friday and did football, and they had another 80. And I looked at that and I was like, we can't keep doing that back-to-back days for the rest of July because we'll never make it. And so, and you and I have talked about this at LSU. Football is the highest velocity that they're ever going to do, and it's the best for change of direction and high-speed running that they can do because it's the game that they play.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't going to go up there and say, y'all are doing too much. Y'all got to pull back. Well, what we did is I pulled back on our sets and reps, and it ended up being like somewhere around 50 or so on our change of direction day. And then they would go out there and do 60 or 70 the next day. And so when you look at that as a whole, that's way closer to your 100 that you get on a day-to-day practice. And a lot of people would look at that and be like, well, you can't do that. You can't do that because they're not going to make it. Well, that's what they're going to do in camp. They're going to go out there and do that every single day in camp. So they have to do that on a way smaller scale because our player-led practices or not player-led, our skills and drills were an hour long. And so you would even multiply that by 2.5. And when they were getting 60, you're looking at 180. And then, my 50 or whatever the day before, you're looking at 150. And so, and again, it was only 2 days a week, not 5 days. And so if you take the 80 from that and the 50 from mine, you could do that for another day or two. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we had to make some adjustments, but there is collaboration there. So I think they're allowed 2 hours and they only use 1, which is huge because it allows us to do some of the things that we want to do, but it also allows them a chance to get out there and play football too. So,
and general work capacity is not a problem for the U.S. military and Army cadets.
No, we have, they're good.
Yeah, their general work capacity is way up there because of all the extra that they have to do in addition to what y'all do with them.
And so the way we looked at it in the summertime was on Monday, we wanted a really high-speed distance and a really high max velocity. And then we'd come back and do our tempo, and we'd want low high-speed distance, super low high-speed distance, if any, and then really high total distance, aka work capacity, and not a ton of accelerations and decelerations. And so you look at your different metrics and you peak when another metric is plummeting and so on and so forth. And then on our change of direction day, that was probably our hardest overall day because your distance is elevated, your high speed distance is a little bit elevated because we were achieving 80 to 85% in some of our repeat sprint change of direction drills. But your max velocity is way low. And, so you just got to be whatever you're looking at. You kind of got to vary your intensities, and then football, obviously, velocity high, distance high, high intensity accelerations and decelerations high, and high speed distance is up there too. And so, um, but by varying that throughout the month of June, they were ready to handle that whenever football ramped up in July, and that's where I think the collaboration was huge because a lot of football coaches would be like, "Well, we got to go right away in June. We got to go right away in June," and they didn't do that, which is good for us because it gave us
Yeah.
a chance to prepare them whenever they did do that.
Yeah. So when you got into strength and conditioning at Cincinnati, did you think you'd be sitting here talking about all these different metrics?
No, and let me say this too, and again, a lot of this you and I have talked about, but like you can get really into the technology and pull back when you really shouldn't pull back. Like to be hard, and I say this here all the time, and we said it at LSU. To be hard, you have to do hard stuff.
Yeah.
And if you take the technology to heart and you read into it too much and you just pull back because it's telling you to pull back, you're probably not going to be a very physical, tough football team.
Yeah.
And so
Or, yeah,
um,
I mean, your body adapts to whatever demand that you place on it if it's done in a progressive, a gradual, progressive manner with breaks,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
that's the
work,
biggest thing.
take, work, take a break,
Yeah.
work,
It's
take
not
a break.
it's not what you do that session, it's what you do the 48 to 72 hours following that session.
Yeah.
And when you look at that Thursday, Friday, those are high CNS days. High CNS days. And this will help you not have to ask another question, but when we were at LSU, we looked at high intensity accelerations and decelerations and we compared it with the force plate and the effect that it had on their RSI modified score, and then just the total distance and the effect that it had on the peak power score. Like you can, and we don't use the force plate here, but some of those guys that come in here with 170 XLs and decels, they just don't move the bar like they normally do. And you can see it, and you can see it with your coach's eye.
Yeah.
And so you just got to be smart with what you're doing the next 48 to 72 hours. And so when you look at that Thursday and Friday deal where those are two high CNS days, well, you understand that they have Saturday off, they have Sunday off. Monday is going to be a high CNS day. And so you get 72 hours there where they should be able to recover, and that's the other reason why we do velocity on Monday and change of direction on Thursday, because those are your two highest central nervous system days,
Yeah.
and you just need proper time to recover. So,
All right. So that brings me to a question regarding all this because and me, I would sit and look at the force plate jumps. I'd sit at the computer and just look at them all day long because I like that. I like seeing the raw data files. I like looking at the different types of jumps that you would see from different players. And, two guys would have similar RSI mods and peak power. But then when you looked at their jump, it was a completely different style of jump. And some people reach that peak power much sooner or quicker than others, and some guys are slower. They use more force, more momentum to generate some of the same numbers. So I like that aspect of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Just looking at the data and trying to interpret it. So my next question is, because not everyone has access to this type of stuff.
Yeah.
So let's say that you're a strength coach or sport coach, it doesn't matter, and you have all the training gear that you need. You got, the best bumpers, bars, racks, you got all of that. Okay. But you don't have any of the fancy technology that we've been talking about that's so popular now. What are some principles or takeaways that they can use that will ensure that they are developing a thoroughly trained team that is ready for competition without all of this stuff?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, and it's a tough one to answer. It's
Yeah.
really going to be dependent on what their team needs, and that's just I know that's a bogus answer.
No, it's not either. No.
You can't treat and we didn't treat the 2019 LSU team the same as we treated the 2021 LSU team. You can't,
No,
because they're
they were
totally
different.
different teams. And so first thing you need to do is do a deep dive into your needs analysis and what you spent your time doing in years previous and the athletes you have coming in, and really decide what you need to do. Say you spent a year developing strength. Well, I think that it would probably be time to be able to express that strength that you created. And so, doing high functioning Olympic weightlifting, high velocity training, and this is all stuff that you can do with a coach's eye. Now, you're not going to have the technology to back it up, but if you program 200 yards of high intensity running, you don't need the data to back it up because you know what it is. The data to back it up just kind of verifies what you're doing, and it also gives you an opportunity to change specific athletes. And so it won't provide you an opportunity to do that, but you'll know when an athlete isn't moving the barbell as fast as he or she normally does. You know, um, and so I think the biggest thing is doing a needs analysis, and then you can't train your younger players, or I guess not younger players, your athletes with a way lower training age, the same as you train your athletes that have been in your program for 3 or 4 years. You've got to do something different for those older athletes, especially because they're going to be so far advanced in your program. You know, um, those are the two main things that I've taken away from West Point. You know, at the level that LSU's at, like, you get some high functioning CNS athletes like immediately from the get go, and so for those guys, it was teaching them how to use their body, how to express that strength, how to be disciplined. There was some things that were not, I don't want to say outside of strength and conditioning, but there's a reason why they were there. You know what I mean? Um, and when you have a true developmental program where you can take the time to develop athletes, you get the opportunity to have different programs and see different programs through and train those athletes in a different way. And I think if you're not doing that, you're doing every athlete you come across a disservice. And so every year, just, and like I said, we did this at LSU, just taking a deep, hard look into what we need. Like, I remember, and I'll forget the exact year. I guess it was 2020, maybe. Like, our team RSI was like 10 points lower than what it was the year before. Do you remember this? And you were like, man, why are they so much different? Why are they so much different? Well, it's not the same team. They're not.
Yeah.
We had a ton of young guys. We had a ton of freshmen. We had a ton of transfers, whatever it may be, and we just you got to take the time and develop that, and by the end of that year, if I remember correctly, it was a lot closer than what it was
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
start.
We had 15 or 16 guys go pro
Yeah.
off of the 2019. And then in
So
2020, we had, well, so Team RSI, we hit we had an average of over 70,
yeah.
like 6 times throughout the season. There were weeks where we had a Team RSI average of like 80 something going into some of those big games.
Yeah.
And then in 2021, I think it was 2021, we had a team average of, and there's a lot that goes into that, but we only had a team average that was above 70 one time the entire calendar year.
Yeah.
And so you have two completely different populations of people.
Yeah. And then, the last thing I'd say is you got to take in your total volume of work. You can't just look at the weight room and what those athletes are doing in the weight room. You have to take into consideration practice. You have to take into consideration outside stressors, family life, boyfriend, girlfriend, testing, like schoolwork, like. And I didn't really realize till I got here, because these guys are so serious about school. Like when finals come up here, those guys are less functioning because of the stress that they have just to do good on their schoolwork. And so, and yeah, it's not a big piece of the pie, but it's a piece of the pie, and it all matters. It all matters. So you got to look at your total volume of work, and if your football coach or whatever, your sport coach is getting stuff done on the court or the field or whatever, you don't need to do it. You don't need to do it. And so, just looking at all those things, I think on a year-to-year basis, and you don't need technology to look at those things, and you'll know. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, that's perfect, because not everybody has access to this, and especially, there's more and more that's available, and you have velocity-based training systems now that people are doing with apps where you film the lift with your cell phone.
Yeah.
And they have the just jump mats. So there's a lot of stuff that is available that are low cost alternatives to the big systems. But then there's people that don't even have access to that type of stuff. So,
and I think the velocity based training is probably the overall most effective when it comes to what you're doing, how your athletes are recovering, because it can tell you CNS, you can see baselines and CNS readiness. And like I remember we'd be like, yeah, we got to take it easy on Jamar today, and Jamar would come in there and clean like 308, and we would try and go velocity based, and you just couldn't put enough weight on the bar. And so we would have been under training guys like that. And so when you look at, and in the same breath, there's a couple of D linemen that just can't do that. And so if you're gonna get one, I would say that would be the one to start with, because you can do so much with that, just as far as training goes. And overtraining.
And there are solutions to those problems that are affordable if the school and the administration make the commitment to it. And then you got to have somebody in place there that understands it. And but you don't absolutely. There's been a lot of big games won, and a lot of players have been coached without technology. So for years and years and years, it was done with experience and intuition and the coach's eye. And, that's still a major part of it. In fact, as a young coach, you probably need to develop that skill first before you worry about all the technology and all the sports science that's out there, and develop those fundamental skill sets, develop the coach's eye, become a great communicator, and then add that extra layer on there as you get older and progress up, the coaching ladder. Anything else?
No.
Did we leave anything out?
I don't know. You tell me. You're the podcast.
I'm the podcast host. Well, I don't know, man. I think you've done a good job. The good thing about the podcast is every guest is different. Every person I've had on here has been different. And, even so, let's go back to the technologies. I haven't had a single guest or two guests on here that look at the same thing. And, everyone has, something different that they look at. And, especially with the force plate, there's so many metrics that you can look at with the force plate. And, Vic, when Vic was at LSU, Vic had probably spent as much time working with catapult than anyone in America, him and Joe, while they were at FSU. And when Vic first got to LSU, we were using Polar, and Vic said Polar gave him everything that he needed. And you've done the same also. You've worked with Polar and Catapult yourself now in a different order than Vic. And, Polar was a cost-effective purchase for us because it was so cheap compared to the other products. But we got all the macros that we needed. Plus, we got heart rate, and y'all don't get heart rate. And
no, there's an opportunity to get it now, but we don't have the right vest to get it.
Yeah.
But it just, you got to decide, and this is with any technology, you got to decide what you're going to hang your hat on. And first you got to spend, and we did this, you got to spend a year just collecting data and not trying to look and analyze it, just collect it and see what it is. Like, when I first got here, I went and re-pulled all of the previous year's camp and data and just saw what it was. Like, you can't walk in the door and be like, well, this is what it was at LSU, or this is what it was wherever I was before, and it'd be the same thing. You got to spend time. And I spent a whole semester collecting data before I decided I wanted to change some of those metrics that I talked about I wanted to change, and because before, our high-speed distance was anything greater than 12 miles an hour. And you know this just as well as I do. Your 12 miles an hour is going to be a way lower percentage of your max velocity than it is for me.
Yeah.
12 miles.
There you go.
And so to sit there and be like, well, anything greater than 12 miles an hour is high-speed distance. Well, and I don't know if I agree with that. And so, but I didn't change that right away. I collected data, and this is just like anything. You collect the data, and then you look at it, and you decide what you want to hang your hat on, and those are the things you hang your hat on. And that's why I think everybody probably gave you different answers, because everybody's hanging their hat on different things,
something different, exactly.
Or it's the same metric in a different system, and they just call it something different.
Yeah,
So,
and every team is different. Every team is different.
No doubt.
And you can't compare, even in the Southeastern Conference where you have the best of the best. So, if you run a different offense than the team down the road, you're going to see different numbers. Yep. If you run a different defense, if you run an even front or an odd front, in football, you're going to see differences in practice data, because if you have, if you have 9 defensive inside, if you have 9 tackles that can play versus a team that has 3 tackles that can play, those poor saps at the school where they have 3 tackles, those guys are going to have much higher loads and are going to have to learn to adapt to higher loads than the school that's got 9 tackles that can play.
No doubt.
And that school that's got those 9 tackles that can play, their top 3 guys are going to be faster in the fourth quarter than the school that's only got 3 tackles.
No doubt.
That can play.
And it's funny you bring that up, because, and I won't take long, but last year we ran the triple option, and we're still a true option team, but we put it out on the perimeter a little bit more, kind of like what Coastal Carolina and stuff does. We throw it a lot more than we did last year, I'll say that. And I have a GPS report here. Our O line was averaging over 100 high intensity accelerations and decelerations in practice, because all they would do is get off, come downhill and hit you in the mouth. Now we do a lot more, like we do true pass sets and stuff. Those guys are at 70, 51, 76. And so you just see a difference. And I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't even look at that. But if you change your offense or you change something you're doing, you're going to have different numbers.
Yeah.
And it's there. I have the two reports right there.
Yeah. And it's hard to compare one team to the next because everything is different. Every year is different based on the genetic makeup of the guys that are out there. And you can look at it globally and you're going to see a difference. And then you can go and look at it and be as granular as you want to be. And you're going to see, like, for instance, you're going to see defensive linemen that perform within the system, not within the game. Well, in the game, but you wouldn't necessarily notice it unless you broke it all down. But, we would look at defensive linemen's force plate jumps and velocities and stuff from practice and in the weight room and then compare them to offensive linemen. And you would say, this guy performs in the weight room. He performs on the force plate. And he's a defensive lineman, but on the force plate and in perch and at practice, he performs like an old lineman, but he plays defense.
Yeah.
And
those guys generally moved positions after a year or two.
Yeah. And you can see how you could put you could put the same weight on the bar for an outside linebacker and a defensive tackle. And the outside linebacker is going to move the weight faster, every rep faster. If it's the same weight, the outside linebacker, and not a maximum weight, of course, but a sub-maximal weight, those skill position players, and I use that term relatively because he's an outside linebacker, but compared to the tackles, they're going to move that weight differently. Now, and so, the Moffitt method program is for all sports, but, unfortunately, most of the people I know are football strength coaches. So I don't know how that differs for a power forward and a shooting guard, because I don't know that. Okay. But there is a difference. You can see the difference between positions. If you just look at the information that you're getting, you can look and see that there is definitely a difference between an outside linebacker and how he moves the weight and a tackle and how he moves the weight, or how a left tackle moves the weight compared to a right tackle. The same weight is going to be moved at a higher velocity for that left tackle than it is the right tackle because he's more athletic.
Yep. And different positions have different qualities, and you nailed it.
Yeah.
You nailed it. Different body types, different.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that
different levers
into it. Yeah. So
good deal.
Pretty. I mean, we could dive into this thing all day long. But.
All right, what you got the rest of the day?
Oh, Coach, we got our spring game today.
Oh, wow, really?
Friday night spring game.
Friday night lights.
Yeah.
And then the guys go on spring break?
No, we got a week of training after, and then it's discretionary. They'll have a week or two of finals, and then they'll go to the military training that we talked about in the beginning of the show. They'll be off for that, and then they'll get a week or two off, and they'll be back the first week of June for summer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So after the military training, do they get a break?
Yeah, no, not this year. They get out of the field Sunday, and we start training on Monday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
welcome to the Army, man.
Yeah, and so we just got to be really, really careful. They're going to be down weight. They're going to be dehydrated. We just got to be really careful what we do that first week. But they generally bounce back pretty quick within 3 or 4 or 5 days. They'll be back to body weight, and they'll have a little pep in their step. But,
all right, let me ask you a stereotypical arm. This is a question regarding haircuts. Okay, so do the freshmen, when they get there, do they all have a burr cut? They do.
Yeah.
And then the older guys get to grow it out a little bit.
Yeah. They still have standards for their hair. Like, I don't think their sideburns can go below their ear. Their neck can't touch their collar. But the older guys, and I'll tell you what's tough, Coach, is when you talk about trying to learn 90 guys' name, hometown, and high school, and they all got a shaved head. It is tough. Man, they look the same. But yeah, the first thing they do when they show up here is they shave those freshmen heads.
That's funny.
Yeah. So
good deal. All right. Now this was cool. You told me this story last year about the graduation gift. Can we talk? Can we talk about that?
Why not? It's your podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not top secret. It's not top secret information.
No, I don't think so. If it is, I don't know. But I don't think so. No, because they buy those. It's just like a class ring. So they get this past year it was engraved 1911 handgun.
Yeah, Colt 1911.
Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah. That was their graduation present from the university or West Point.
Yeah. And now they have to pay for it, but like I said, it's just like a class ring or something, and they get it at a discounted price. But it's really cool. I saw one last year, and it's a really neat gift. And I don't know if it's a 1911 every year, but I do believe it's some sort of Colt firearm every year and every class is different, which is really cool. So
good deal. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on. Okay.
Yeah, Coach. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and the sound is much better this time around. So I appreciate you being patient with it. Please give Meg, Lily, and my man Luke our best from the Moffitts.
Yeah, I will.
The dogs are doing well.
Yeah, well is relative, but Gunner's doing better. He's got diabetes and stuff, and he's blind now, but he can get around the house, and he's better than he's been. And he's doing really good for everything he's got going on. But they're good, man. They're good. Coop, man, there's so many deer up here. Coop will run. We got this little rock wall in our backyard, and he'll run and he'll jump over that rock wall and chase deer till you can't see him anymore, and then he just comes bebop. He's like boom. He just comes bebopping back. But they're having a blast, man. It's different for them, but the snow and you know the stuff that they're able to experience, kids and dogs, has been phenomenal. So
now you don't have bears around, do you?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we got black
around
bears.
your place where you live.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so. The past 2 days, our garbage has been scattered from our front yard to our backyard. And at first, I thought it was a raccoon. But then the second day, I woke up and the garbage can sits in front of one of our garage doors. The whole garbage can was all the way across the driveway. And then the garbage was scattered again. And I was like, that's a bear. Now, I did see a bear. Last year, I saw a bear going through our trash once, and then it scurried along and it climbed the tree in our front yard. And this was at like 2 o'clock.
That is crazy.
Yeah, man.
A black bear in your front yard.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
I'm pretty sure it's a bear again.
Yeah. Are people allowed to hunt them?
Yeah. The prep school strength coach, so you can hunt anywhere you want on West Point with a bow. And he killed 2 black bears since I've been here with a bow. And they're like 300, like the ones he killed they're not small.
No, it's good eating too, man. For the listeners, black bear meat is really, really, really good.
So I don't know if I probably can't hunt them in the city I live in, but if I came here to West Point, I'd probably kill them.
Yeah, good deal.
So it's
all right, man. So
cool.
you can follow Jake on Instagram at Jake_Riedel, and that that last name is spelled Riedel, not Reidel. So it's Jake _Riedel, Riedel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And look,
So
reach out to me with any questions you have, and I'd love to dive into this thing more. We just kind of grazed the top of it in this show, but we can talk about this all day. So anybody that wants to, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll give you my number and my email address. I don't want to give it out now, but and we can get to talking.
Good deal. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it a lot.
All right,
and
Coach.
again, seriously, tell me, Meg, Lily, and Luke that I said what's up. Give Luke a punch on the shoulder for me, okay?
Yes, sir. I will. Tell your family I said hello.
I will. I appreciate that, Jake. Thanks a lot.
All right, Coach. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right, buddy. All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Okay, so this brings us to the end of today's podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in, not turning in. That's what I feel like doing right now, is turning in. But please, if you haven't already done so, follow the podcast and share it with your friends. If you have any questions about the Moffitt Method program, our training solutions for schools and teams at all levels, go to our website, themoffittmethod.fit, and check it out. Anyone can contact us through our website or email us at info@themoffittmethod.fit. Again, that email address is info@themoffittmethod.fit. And if you know of someone that may be interested in one of our products, please share our info with them. We're here to help. Our program, again, offers 52 weeks of programming. We assign a remote coach to every organization, and that remote coach is available on a daily basis to answer any questions that you may have. And our program includes over 180 instructional videos. So please, again, go to the moffittmethod.fit website, check it all out. And if you know anyone that's interested, please share our information with them. And lastly, it's a Friday here, so let's make sure we have a great day today. Have a great weekend. Find time to get outside, work out, go for a hike, enjoy yourself, be strong in everything you do, and we'll see you again next Wednesday. Thank you for joining in.